Hi, this is Kyle, and this is my second live annotated bibliography for EDUC 5199G. This one is about a journal article titled Efficacy of a Web-Based Crowdsourced Peer-to-Peer Cognitive Reappraisal Platform for Depression, Randomized Controlled Trial. Essentially what was happening in this study was people were trying a new application for peer-to-peer psychological assistance. The application was called Panoply. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. There were 166 participants who did the post-test assessment. They were ages 18 to 35, they were native English speakers, and they were recruited online. The treatment group used this experimental application called Panoply, I think, to report their negative thoughts and debug others. And the use of the word debug there is interesting for reasons we'll explore in a moment. The control group was given another generic expressive writing application. This is the fanciness of emails here. This is an example of what the application looked like during the trial, and what I want to draw your attention to is kind of the top left corner where it says practice your skills. The first two categories available are labeled as support, and it shows that 15 people want help, and debug. And it actually uses the word debug, and that's because this application was inspired by the creator's use of a coding website called Stack Overflow, where programmers post their problems related to programming and other people basically peer assess them. They provide possible solutions, and people critique other solutions, and the best ones float to the top. And the person who invented this thought, why can't we apply the same thing to our own coding? So we're actually debugging our psychology and using this application. A different part of the view here shows an example of the debugging, and so here's someone's problem, and there's different categories that you can call these problems so that people can see why they might be thinking the thoughts they're thinking. And so they can indicate whether the person is thinking of all or nothing thinking, whether they're fortune telling, whether they're overgeneralizing, whether they're mind reading, or whether they're just catastrophizing. In this example, people are saying you're mind reading, you're overestimating your ability to read other people's thoughts. The actual methodology was basically a 3-week period only, where people were using this application or the control application, and the metrics used were psychological testing scores at the end of the test, as well as engagement scores at the end of the test based on number of accesses, length of accesses, and word count. The results ended up being that in both groups they found that there was improvement in terms of depression and perseverance. In the treatment group, reappraisal improved, and that is the ability to think about one's own problems a different way. They did find that the treatment group was drastically more engaged. The treatment group had more than twice as many words written, more than twice as many sessions, and the sessions were lasting 3 times as long. So in terms of engagement, this was certainly successful. The paper indicates that the depression status and baseline reappraisal were both moderators of the post-test depressive symptoms, which essentially means a person who was very depressed before would show more improvement, and a person who was very poor at reappraisal would show more significant improvement. In my opinion, other moderators might be language skills and frequency of internet access. In terms of outcome, the main reason I find this paper perhaps a little questionable is that the creator of this application was one of the researchers. And so it's possible that they're a very skilled and balanced researcher, but ultimately this Panoply platform has evolved into a newer platform called Coco that's already launched on some national app stores. You can't find it on the Canadian Apple App Store. As it might be a person defending their creation, I do take it with a bit of a grain of salt. The trial period was also fairly short.